My dad retired. He did not let me finish my sentence and interrupted again. Oh, then he must be dependent on you for his living after retirement? He didn't even let me complete my sentence before passing judgment. I was furious by now. I reacted. Excuse me? What are you saying? Don't be offended. It is common for a poor family to use their daughter to trap wealthy men for their inheritance. Do you mean that I and my family have trapped your son for your wealth? He shrugged his shoulders as if he wanted to say yes. I was in shock. I could not believe that someone could be so mean. I was disgusted by Michael. He made me feel inferior as I was poor, according to him. I am Amanda, 28 years old, living in California with my boyfriend, Steve, who is also 28 years old. We met in law school 3 years ago and instantly fell for each other. Since then, we have been living together. After graduation, I took up a job as an attorney in a consulting company, while Steve works at a bank. 6 months ago, Steve and I went for a holiday where he proposed to me and I immediately said yes. I didn't have any reason to say no. We have known each other for 3 years and we enjoy being together. After coming back from holiday, we decided to inform our parents about our wedding plans. It was decided that the coming weekend we would meet my parents and the following week we would meet Steve's parents. We had never introduced each other to our parents before, due to some personal reason, so this would be our first meeting. I was super excited about this plan. I could not control my excitement and immediately called up my mom. Mom, Steve proposed to me and we're planning to get married. Congratulations, sweetie. I am so happy for you both. Yeah, Mom, I'm happy too. So when can we meet Steve? We're planning to come home this Sunday. Does this sound good? Yes, sure. See you then. Bye. Bye. The following week, Steve and I drove to my parents' house in Sacramento. I'm born and brought up in Sacramento. My father, Mark Johnson, is a retired judge, and my mother is a homemaker. Steve was a little nervous on the way, but I tried to cheer him up by saying, "It would be fine. My parents are cool ones." "Oh, yeah? I'll find out today." As soon as we entered the house, my mom came running to welcome us. Steve greeted my mom with a nervous smile. She took us to the living room where Dad was sitting with his newspaper. Steve went towards him and offered a handshake. My dad immediately stood up and greeted Steve with a formal handshake. My father's politeness immediately turned off Steve's nervousness. We spent the day talking about work and life while enjoying the delicious lunch prepared by my mom. Dad shared his courtroom experiences with us. My parents liked Steve's polite nature. Steve, too, seemed to have a good time with my parents. We came back with happy memories. Steve looked relieved and delighted with the experience. I was happy, too. Next, it was my turn to meet Steve's parents. Steve was tense throughout the week after this meeting. When I asked him, he just said, I don't get along well with my father." "I know, don't worry. It is just a matter of a few hours. We will meet them and come back home." Steve's father, Michael Lewis, was a businessman, and he wanted Steve to join his real estate business. Steve didn't like his father's business and instead wanted to study law. Since then, they are not on good terms. While on the way to his parents' home, Steve told me, "Don't be upset if my father behaves arrogantly." "What? Why would he do so?" "I don't know. He might be just angry with me." "That was a long time ago. He must have forgiven you." Steve sighed. "I wish, but I know my father. He does not forgive that easily." "Oh, come on. You're just overthinking. It'll be fine." Steve's anxiousness made me nervous, too. Steve's house was on the other side of the city. It was a 2-storied bungalow with a spacious lawn. As we went inside the house, we were greeted by Steve's mother, Catherine. "Hello, my dear." She greeted us with a warm hug. She looked like a kind and poised woman. She then took us to the lawn outside the bungalow where my fiancé's dad was waiting for us. Steve does not speak much about his dad, but whatever little I knew about him, I imagined him to be an arrogant rich man who loves to show off his wealth. And guess what? He turned out to be exactly the same. He sat there with a folded arm. His stiff posture signified that he was still angry with Steve and wanted to unleash his frustration upon us. As soon as I made eye contact with Michael, I smiled wide and greeted him. "Hello, sir." He nodded with a straight face and gestured his hand towards the chair opposite to him. I sat down there. After we settled down, Catherine broke the awkward silence and said, "Amanda, you are so beautiful and elegant. Your parents have taken good care of you." "Oh, thank you so much for your kind words. You are beautiful too." "That's so sweet of you. Tell us more about yourself." Catherine's words were soothing. It gave me a little comfort to sit there in front of Michael, who was sitting cross-legged with folded arms and without any smile. I smiled at Catherine and said, "Well, I was born and brought up in Sacramento. I'm an attorney at a consulting firm." As soon as Michael heard this, his expression changed and he interrupted. "Wait, you work as an attorney? Why can't your father provide for you? Doesn't he earn well? What did your father do?" I was shocked by his response. I was wondering if I've said anything wrong. In my confused tone, I said, "My dad is retired." He did not let me finish my sentence and interrupted again. "Oh, then he must be dependent on you for his retirement life." He didn't even let me complete my sentence before passing judgment. I was furious by now. "Excuse me? What are you saying?" Don't be offended. It is common for a poor family to use their daughter to trap wealthy men for their inheritance." "Do you mean that I and my family have trapped your son for your wealth?" He shrugged his shoulders as if he wanted to say yes. I was in shock. I could not believe that someone could be so mean. I was disgusted by Michael. He made me feel inferior as I was poor, according to him. I wanted to leave that place immediately, but Steve held my hand and asked me to be seated for a while. He then turned towards Michael and said, "We are not here to listen to your taunts. We just came to inform you both that we are getting married in a few months." "And who's paying for this ceremony?" "That's not your business, Dad." "Of course it is. I know her parents cannot pay for a wedding ceremony. It would ultimately come on you. You have to take the burden on your shoulders, isn't it?" "It is mine and Amanda's matter as to who would pay for the ceremony." "Huh, you are already in her trap. First, she brainwashed you to leave this house and join that stupid law college, and now this wedding." Steve lost his cool and started shouting at Michael. "I left the house because I wanted to study law. I was not interested in running this real estate business. I didn't even know Amanda at that time. Then how can you blame her for this thing? You could have come home after your graduation, but this girl trapped you into living with her in that tiny apartment." Michael was being unreasonable with his allegations against me and my parents. He continued, "I have nothing further to say. You are running your life by marrying a poor girl. She and her parents seem to have already trapped you." "Dad, stop. I have met her parents. They are kind people and they are not interested in your wealth." The conversation between them got intense. "You have always made wrong choices in life. I already gave up on you when you decided to study that stupid law and work for a meager salary instead of joining my business. I hate your business because it is sick." "Oh, please, please stop this argument." Catherine intervened and asked them to stop. Steve stood up and stormed out of the lawn. I followed him. Catherine came running behind us, asking us to stop. "Steve, please stop." Steve ignored her and kept walking towards the exit of the bungalow. I looked back and saw that Catherine was running towards us with tears in her eyes. I stopped. She came to me and held my arm, saying, "Please, ask him to stop for a while. Last time also, he left like this and did not meet me for several years." I stood numb. I felt sorry for her as she was not at fault. She had to suffer because of her husband's arrogance. "Amanda, please, ask Steve to calm down." I didn't know what to say because I was upset too with Michael's words. I pacified her, saying, "Steve is angry now. Once he is in a better mood, I'll ask him to call you." "Yeah, please ask him to call me, please." "Sure, you take care, okay?" "Okay." She was still sobbing as I left the place. I came out of the bungalow to see Steve waiting for me inside the car. I got inside and we drove back. We did not speak a word on the way back home. Both of us were hurt and exhausted by what happened in his house. After dinner, Steve apologized to me for his father's behavior. Honey, I want to apologize for my father's behavior. I know he hurt you with his cruel words. Yeah, I know it is not your fault. Yet I can't get over the fact that he is such an arrogant man. How can someone be so rude? I know he's your father and I shouldn't be saying these things about him, but he was mean to me. He has always been a mean person. Sadly, my mom has to suffer because of his arrogant nature. I wonder how she's tolerating your father for all these years. Yeah, Mom has always been a soft-natured woman. Dad seems to be exploiting her forgiving and caring nature. I feel sorry for your mother. I feel sorry for her too. I cut off ties with her when I'm angry with Dad, but she has always loved and supported me. You shouldn't punish her for your father's mistake. You should call her now. She was really upset when you left the house in anger. You're right. Let me call her. Thanks for supporting me. Steve called his mom and pacified her while I was still in shock. I was worried that Michael might insult my parents at our wedding. When Steve came back after talking to his mom, I confronted these thoughts to him. He said that he'll figure out something. I wanted to tell him not to call his dad to our wedding, but I couldn't say that up front. We started our wedding preparation. I always wanted to marry on my parents' wedding anniversary and in the same church as them. I told Steve about this wish of mine when we started dating. He was quite amused with this initially, but later he agreed to this, as it was not a big deal. The date was 6 months away. We spent the time preparing for our big day bit by bit. We booked a resort in Sacramento for the wedding dinner. My parents wanted to have a pre-wedding dinner with Steve's parents so that the family can get to know each other. Steve was hesitant about this, and so was I. We both knew that Michael would screw up this get-together. I told my parents that Steve's dad is a busy man and is mostly traveling for his business purpose. My father sensed that something was wrong when we were reluctant to have a family get-together, but he did not say anything. Steve informed his mom about the wedding date and location. She was happy and excited about this. She called me a couple of times asking about the wedding preparations and everything. She was a sweet lady. As the wedding date came near, I was getting worried about facing Michael again on my big day. Many a time I thought of asking Steve not to invite Michael, but my parents would become suspicious of his absence. Besides, if we don't invite Michael, then probably he would not allow Catherine to attend the wedding. She would again have to suffer because of him. I confronted Steve about my anxiety and told him, "Steve, I'm worried that your father might ruin our big day with his arrogance." "Well, I'm worried about this too." "What if he insults my family in front of the guests?" Steve smiled and said, "If he does, I'm sure your father would handle him and teach him the lesson. After all, he is a judge and he knows how to handle difficult people." "Should we tell my parents about this?" "No, they might stress unnecessarily like you, so let it be. If anything happens, I'll ensure that my dad doesn't cross his line." I was still not convinced. Steve looked at me and said, "Honey, no matter what happens, I'll always be on your side, so cheer up." His answer was assuring. I knew my father can handle this situation. After all, it was Michael's arrogant assumption that we have trapped Steve for his inheritance. It was not true. A day before our wedding, we drove to Sacramento. We had booked a hotel for our friends and relatives to stay. Steve's mom informed me that they would directly come to the church for the main wedding. I was nervous. I walked down the aisle with my dad, and that was the happiest moment of my life while we were exchanging vows. I saw Mark and Catherine entering the church. My parents escorted them to the front row to take a seat. Catherine waved at us. She looked happy and excited, whereas Michael sat with a grim face. By then, I stopped caring about him. I was happy to have my parents by my side as I get married to Steve. All went well, and we went to the hotel to get some rest before the wedding dinner. I asked my mom if they got the chance to meet Steve's parents. She informed me that they did not get a chance to speak to Steve's parents apart from informal greetings. Steve's parents arrived late to the wedding, and my parents were busy with the arrangements, so they didn't get enough time to have any conversation. But my mom mentioned that Michael seemed upset. I asked nervously, "Did he say anything?" "No, he didn't say anything. Actually, he did not say anything at all. It was Catherine who was responding to our greetings. I'm not sure what was wrong with him." "Oh, okay." My mother got suspicious. "Is everything fine between Steve and his parents?" Yeah, everything's fine. He might be tired from the long journey." "Hopefully he catches some rest before the wedding dinner." "Yeah." I thought Steve's parents would not attend the wedding dinner, but to my surprise, they came. Catherine was happy and greeted all of us with a cheerful smile, while Michael was standing stiff with folded arms. He did not bother to congratulate us. Instead, he told Steve, "You've become a puppet. Instead of organizing the wedding at our place, you came to her place for the wedding." "Dad, not today. It's my wedding dinner. Please don't ruin it." "Huh. This girl and her family have already ruined your life, Steve. They made you spend so much on this lavish wedding dinner. If this continues, you'll be on the streets one day." Catherine looked embarrassed as she intervened. "Michael, why are you doing this to our son? It is embarrassing. The guests have started coming in." "Huh, I don't care. They're not my guests." Catherine pulled him aside. My parents were taking care of the arrangements. After a while, they came and greeted Steve's parents. "Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Lewis. We didn't get a chance to greet each other at the church. Hope you're having a good time." "Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Johnson. Thanks for the warm welcome. Yes, we are enjoying the evening." Michael faked his smile and said, "Hello. Yes, we didn't get the chance for a formal introduction. My name is Michael Lewis, and I run a real estate business with an annual turnover of over $10 million. "That's impressive. Glad to know." Michael interrupted again. Yeah, I know you must have been impressed. Amanda told me that you're retired now. It must be difficult for you." "What? Difficult? Why? I get a handsome pension from the government for my service. I'm a retired judge, and not a retired janitor." My dad responded humorously. "What? You're a retired judge?" "Yes. Why, is that a surprise? Did you assume that I was a janitor?" Saying this, my father burst out in laughter. My father realized that Michael was trying to show off his wealth. Hence, he gave a befitting reply to him in a humorous way. Michael turned pale and could not find words. He responded in a low voice. "What? No, I did not assume anything as such. Actually, I didn't know that you were into government services." "All right. Now that you know, do you have anything to say?" "No, I'm good. Thanks." Steve was right that my father can well handle Michael. Michael made me feel inferior, thinking I was poor. Now he was shocked to know that my father was a judge at Sacramento Court. "Well, excuse us. We have to attend to other guests. Please enjoy the dinner." "Sure, please go ahead. We'll take care of ourselves." My parents went to greet their friends. Michael pulled Steve aside and said, "Why didn't you tell me that her dad is a retired judge?" Amanda wanted to say, but you didn't let her complete the sentence. "Now, please excuse us. We want to enjoy our wedding dinner." Michael's face turned red in anger. He came to the party thinking that he was the wealthiest man at the party, and my parents were poor. Now it hurts his ego to see renowned government officials and bureaucrats joining the party with my parents. He had no one left to unleash his frustration other than Catherine. He looked frustrated for the rest of the evening, but faked his smile when my parents introduced him to high-profile guests. He then left the party early, forcing Catherine to join him. She wanted to spend time with us, but Michael didn't let her stay. I felt sorry for her. After a few months, I got to know that Catherine has decided to divorce Michael as she could no longer take his dominance. Steve told me that Michael did not start this business of his own. It was of his paternal grandfather. That is, Catherine's father. As Catherine was a single daughter, her father handed over the business to Michael before moving to the countryside to spend his retired life. Although Michael was running the business at the forefront, the actual owner of the business was Catherine. She took away his father's ancestral business from Michael and handed it over to her first cousin. The bungalow at which Steve's parents lived was also Catherine's ancestral home. After their divorce, Michael was chased out of that house, and now he has no place to live. I got to know from Catherine that Michael's parents and his siblings have also cut off all ties with him long back as Michael insulted his parents for their poverty. Michael had no one to go to, and now he's doing odd jobs to make a living. I don't feel sorry for him because he has ruined all his relationships because of his shallow nature. He was arrogant about his wealth, which was not even his. After knowing all this, I'm convinced that Michael married Catherine only for her wealth. That is why he considers everyone to be greedy like him. Steve and I often visit Catherine in her bungalow. She has started organic farming in the backyard where she grows organic fruits and vegetables. She brings fresh fruits for us from her farm whenever she visits us. I feel happy to see her independent and living happily on her terms and not dictated by her cruel husband. Steve and I are also living a happy and prosperous life.